Hello, Midlife Maven. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. And today I'm diving into, it's kind of a deep dive on purpose, really, and who you actually came here to be. What are you doing about that? And how can you actually understand it from a human design perspective? We're going to talk about the magnetic monopole, about the G center, about gate 2, and about how do you navigate it with your hormones raging and society expecting you to do what they expect you to do. So if you're loving this pod, remember to hit the subscribe button or the follow button, and also share it with a friend. That helps so much get the word out there. And if you're new here, first, thank you so much for being here and listening to Midlife by Design. I'm your host, Lori Lisai, human design teacher and midlife coach, here to help you use human design to shed the shoulds and be who you came here to be. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. Today, I am diving into this idea that midlife is not a crisis, but actually more of a cosmic nudge. Maybe it feels a little bit like a shove for some of you, and it might feel like, a hard push. I like to look at this phase of life as rather than a crisis, which has a negative connotation, right? And I love to reframe it to be this invitation to just re-examine some things. And what I wanted to talk about today was some of the pieces of human design and astrology that are behind that. Because yes, it does coincide with some pretty significant hormonal changes that are going on in our bodies. And I want us to think about this question of what if it's actually all by design? What if we are all going through this same sort of shift, these same sort of life cycles by design? And depending on the choices that you've made in the past, depending on your life circumstances at the time, that is going to dictate your experience, how it feels for you. So one of the first major transits that happens with the planets is your first Saturn return, which happens sometime between 28 and 30-ish. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably somewhere in your mid to late 30s to mid to late 50s, even later than that potentially. And so I want you to think back to when you were in that 28 to 30 time frame of your life and what was going on. Did you have this feeling of like, I'm putting my big girl pants on, I'm like stepping into this real role that I've taken on. For example, I think back to myself, and by the time I hit 30, I'm like, 30 feels like an adult, and I had already been teaching for 8 years by then. I was well into a career. And side tangent, I have been talking to all of the young people I know and telling them, great, go to college if that's what you want to do. Your 20s are the time for exploration and fuck around and find out, really. It's where we want to encourage our young people to not necessarily get into this societal role right away. Figure out who the hell you are first. And that first Saturn return is usually like a wake-up call, like, oh shit, okay, this shit hits the fan. Like, you do have to put your big girl pants on. And oftentimes what happens around that time is we get this pressure to feel like we need to do what we should be doing. We need to like fall in line. If we have spent our 20s fucking around and finding out, then that this Saturn return is like the time when we need to be the responsible human or whatever. So think back to this period in your life and what did that look like for you? And then the next major transit is our Uranus opposition. And this is the traditional midlife crisis, 40 to 42, basically, somewhere in there when we're trying to figure out like, who are we? What is this life all about? And Uranus is this planet of shaking things up, really. It's the planet of the unexpected. It rules things that are surprises. And it also is a little funky. It's like your great Aunt Edna who wears butterfly glasses and dyes her hair purple and, sings in the library. It's this funky kind of funny, weird-ish type of energy. And so it comes along this Uranus opposition to shake things up. And the question is, at that point in your life, have you been doing what is truly aligned for you? In this phase since you've been putting on your big girl pants, have you been actually putting on the big girl pants that you want to wear? Or have you been wearing the pants that society expects of you? And if it's the latter, where you've been putting on the pants that society expects of you and they don't fit, they don't feel good, they are uncomfortable, then what are you going to do about it? And that's why, for a lot of people, it is a crisis because it forces you to reckon with that, right? It's like, how do you reconcile making the choices that you've made thus far and realizing at this age that they don't actually fit who you are. They don't align anymore. So the next transit that we move into is our second Saturn return, which happens around the ages of 58 to 60. And at this point, it's Saturn coming around the wheel again. Saturn is our greatest teacher. It's kind of the like hard ass teacher, but it also delivers for you as long as and after you have learned the lessons. So at your second Saturn return, this is your opportunity to step into like mastery and being that wise elder. And you're living this wisdom and truly integrating it at that point and becoming this role model. I'm thinking of six lines, but this is really for all of us to step into that wisdom and to share with younger people, hey, this is the road I took. Maybe you want to think about this, or these are the lessons that I learned. And maybe I can save you some heartbreak or whatever the case may be. So if you're listening to this pod again, you're maybe in your 30s to the 50s. And if you're in, the perimenopause phase, then you're also in the phase of the estrogen going haywire, right? Your hormones, actually not even just estrogen, but your hormones are wreaking havoc in your body. They're spiking and then they're dropping and they're causing all kinds of havoc. And essentially what happens, as you know, when the estrogen drops is that you give less fucks, right? You just don't care as much as you did when you were in your 30s, for example, in your, younger 30s, especially. And I'm thinking back to that Saturn return where it's like that pressure for snapping into line with society's expectations. And this is where we actually shed those expectations if we're willing to let them go. And so having these fucks fall away as they do with estrogen, it's an invitation for you to think about what's left after that. What do you want? What are the questions that you can be asking for your life that truly feel in alignment for you? So, this is really where we spend less energy people pleasing and more energy getting into alignment and expressing what we truly do want and what we feel pulled to. So, one of the things that I was just supercharged about talking to you about today was this pull and this idea of your purpose and your body pulling the things toward you that are meant for you and letting other things fall to the wayside. And so I want to talk about the G center. And the G center is the center of love. It's the center of direction, and it's the center of our identity. And if you have it defined, which means it's colored in, it's the diamond shaped center in the middle of the chart. And if you have this center defined, meaning it's colored in, then that means that these themes tend to be more consistent for you. You maybe have a consistent kind of thumb on the pulse of your direction, for example. And if your center is undefined, then it means that it's just more fluid. You may have one direction for a couple of years and then pivot to another direction. And you have this real chameleon ability about you where you're not necessarily the same person in every single situation, right? So at the time of this recording, we are going through gate 2, a gate 2 transit, and it drops on Monday. So we're going to be in gate 2, line 2. And gate 2 is the gate of the receptive. It's this very feminine energy of receiving. And it's also the gate of the driver of self. And I think this is why I'm feeling so literally pulled to talk about this today, because this is where our magnetic monopole lives. And essentially, it's all about being guided by your own internal compass and you being open to the abundance of life because you allow yourself to be guided by this internal compass. So let's talk a little bit more about the magnetic monopole. It lives in the G center, and physically it lives right under your sternum. And this magnetic monopole is where your authority is rooted. And I don't want to confuse you in terms of like the different authorities. If you're a sacral being, you're still going to feel a sacral hit, for example. It's just that the ultimate source of like the correctness that speaks through your authority comes from your magnetic monopole. It's like your quantum compass. It's this device inside of you that picks up on things that your mind can't detect. So, this is why it is so critical for you to use your inner authority, because that is what is going to be in alignment with you, as opposed to your analytical mind and navigating life's decisions using your logic. This is about having that body-centered wisdom, right? Using your authority, which gets its magic from the monopole. So the interesting thing about the magnetic monopole is that it only attracts. So this is how it's tied to gate 2. Gate 2 is the receptive. It receives. And unlike a typical magnet, which, if you flip it, it repels. And if you point the magnets the other way, then they attract. This magnetic monopole is mono, only one way, which means that it only attracts. And in order for it to do its magic, we have to get the fuck out of the way, truly. And in order to get out of the way, what I mean by that is letting go of other people's opinions, letting go of worrying if everybody likes you, letting go of fitting in, letting go of playing by the rules and thinking that you have to fit into society's expectations of you, letting go of this idea of, well, I have to do this because everybody else is doing it. And you've got to let all of that stuff go in order to trust and let your monopole take over. It's like if you can't let go of all that stuff, then you're truly quieting that part of you. And it's like almost impossible for your inner authority to function when you're so worried about all of those other things I just talked about. Because you're not listening to your body, right? Your mind is coming into the equation. Your mind is thinking about all the things and all of the expectations. And listen, your conditioned mind, which we all have, is going to try to talk you out of whatever your authority says, like 99.999% of the time, right? There's always going to be a reason to not do the thing that your authority is telling you. There's always logic for the other side. There's always reasons. And the thing that can be so challenging about following your authority is that oftentimes you don't feel like you have an explanation for it. You're just like, it feels right to me, especially if you're an emotional authority, right? Like that's the answer you should have. It feels right to me. Or my sacral says, yes, I got to do this right now. And that can be super scary for us, especially at this age. I think that the generations coming behind us, it will get easier and easier because they see us starting to do it. And so when you think about honoring your authority, think about your kids. Think about the people coming behind you who need you as a role model to do this stuff. So there are plenty of arguments that your mind is going to make. And it also comes down to your nervous system, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes, but this safety and security, that's what your mind is doing. It's trying to keep you safe. And the magnetic monopole is the force that it's pulling those opportunities to you. And I think I've mentioned this before on the pod, but if you think of it like a magnet and all of those shoulds and all of that bullshit that comes in from society, if you think of that as like dust and debris and crap on the magnets, like the sticky orange juice that your kids spilled, all of that getting on that magnet, it makes it much weaker, that pull, when it's got all of that stuff on it. So the more that you can do to clear those layers of expectations, of shoulds, of quieting the mind and just allowing yourself to honor the pull that you feel, honor the things that are coming to you that feel right for you. It knows the answers. This magnetic monopole knows the answers. And most of the time, you've got to let shit go that's weighing you down in order to make room for the good stuff that's coming to you. I'm going to say that one more time. Most of the time, you got to let shit go in order to make room for the good stuff that's meant for you, that's coming to you. If you just clear out that junk, and listen, it's Taurus season. It is a great time for some spring cleaning. So if you can get out of your own way and Be willing, here's the trick, be willing to sit with the part of you that is absolutely fucking terrified of losing the things that you have. If you can sit with the little versions of you who are terrified to let go, if you can sit with them and reassure them, right? This is where the nervous system work comes in. Helping yourself see that you've got this, that you can put one foot in front of the other, even when shit hits the fan. Even when you step out, you feel that fear and take that step, regardless of that fear. You acknowledge that fear, you say thank you to that fear, and you take the step because you know, you feel it in your body that this is the right thing for you because you're listening to your strategy and authority. While I was doing some research for this episode, I read something that said life is meant to be lived somatically, not logically. So somatically means in our body, using our body, right? And if you think about it, again, we're getting in the brain here, but if you think about the idea that we came here as souls to have a human experience, right? We're in this human body to have a human experience. So if we're cutting ourselves off at the freaking knees by listening to what we think society expects of us instead of doing what our bodies are telling us to do, then we're missing the fucking point. So how do we quiet our minds and let them just sit in that passenger side, right? It's the passenger idea that Ra was talking about, and just let them freaking chill over there. Know that they're going to be like da, 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 and just observe. Just be like, oh yeah, I hear you, I see you. Yep, we're doing this anyway, because our minds are constantly in the pressure center, right? It's that continual pressure cooker. And for us in midlife, during this phase, it's about understanding, okay, this is the mind getting overwhelmed. How do I come back to what I came here to do, who I came here to be? So I want you to think about a couple of key questions that may be surfacing as you're making your way through perimenopause, through midlife, through this phase. One is, who am I now? Who are you? And if the first answer that you come up with is something like, I'm a mother, or I'm an accountant, or I'm a wife, then I challenge you to go deeper. Besides those labels, who are you? Now, in this phase, who are you? The second question is, what lights you up just for you? Like, what kinds of things truly light up your soul just for you? Not because you're doing it for anybody else, not because you're doing it to be an example, but just because it brings you joy. The next question is, where are you headed next? And does it feel like you? Does it feel like the next natural, most aligned step for you? And then the last question is, what's on your bucket list? And how is that going so far? If we think that we're halfway through our lives, what is on the list of things that we want to experience before the end of our lives? And how are we doing? Like, should we be maybe prioritizing some of those things more instead of constantly kicking the can down the road? So I want to come back to the importance of nervous system regulation, and especially as you're transitioning, as you're working to live in a more aligned way and to shed some of the conditioning that you're struggling with. I want to just remind you a few things for the nervous system. Number one, especially in perimenopause and menopause, slowing down, just slowing down. Do less shit. And I've been following a lot of perimenopause talk lately because I just released, as you know, the Perimenopause Survival Guide. And that takes a look at your energy type in particular and some hacks for how do you use your energy type to help you when you're struggling in perimenopause. And so I've been following a lot of conversations about perimenopause, and they're great. And plus, also, so many of them have like a gajillion things that you can and should be doing. I just actually was on a walk this morning and saw my neighbor, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, we're planting the garden and I'm getting all my greens in." And she's like, "As you know, we're trying to get all the fiber in." And it just reminded me of one of 27 different things that we are supposed to be doing in this phase of life. And yes, and if all of those things are just stressing you out, then you're missing the point. Same with the Perimenopause Survival Guide. Like, that thing is gold. There are some really great ideas in there to help you. And I make a point of saying, don't fucking do them all. Like, this is not meant to stress you out. Pick one or two and start there. So this is nervous system regulation, is helping our bodies acclimate to what's going on with our hormones and then de-stressing. So the other reminder is prioritizing rest. I think that especially midlife women really struggling with sleep, waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, mind racing, just trying to use those opportunities for sitting in meditation if you can't fall asleep. Use something like Insight Timer. I love that app. They have so many free meditations on there, and sit and try to just come back to center. Observe your thoughts. Meditation is not about totally not thinking. It's, I don't know, maybe if you're the monk, that's what you're doing. But for most of us, we have thoughts, and it's more, okay, you're observing the thoughts coming in, right? And that is just simply slowing yourself down. Saying no to more things, like stop saying yes to everything. Stop adding things to your list. You don't need to do everything. Say no. Doing what truly lights you up, as I mentioned, what feels good in your body, using your body cues, because some of the things that maybe you were doing in your 30s might not feel good anymore. Maybe you need to make some adjustments, and it doesn't mean that they'll never feel good again. I see tons of women in their late 50s who have come through the perimenopause phase who are thriving and doing a lot more like physically active stuff, because remember, when we get through the menopause to the menopause phase, then our testosterone is actually higher than our estrogen. So, we have a little bit more of that kind of energy. So just thinking about, what is it now that brings you joy? And then going back to the idea of the cues that your body gives you in perimenopause, hot flashes or night sweats, brain fog, it could be itchiness, it could be, gosh, there really are so many, aren't there? Anyway, thinking about what are those cues trying to tell you? What do they mean? And even just asking in meditation, what is my body asking of me right now? And see what comes up. So I have a few other self-reflection questions that I'm going to leave you with here. First one is, where do I feel most like myself? Where, when, what am I doing? Maybe start thinking about those situations as another sort of compass, like a direction that you can potentially use as a cue for yourself to continue, to fan the flames of, where is it that you feel most like yourself now in this phase? What roles are you ready to shed? Which ones are you just ready to let go of? Even if you don't know how, which ones are you ready for? I think that it's important to consider that first step of understanding. I just need to know first what I'm ready to shed, even if I'm not actually ready to shed it. It's like the precursor to being able to let it go. It's that acknowledgement and bringing awareness to it. And then the third question would be, where are you being called to step out more authentically? Where do you feel like maybe you're not showing up as your authentic self anymore, or the person who you are becoming? And where can you start to experiment showing up a little bit more in alignment with that person that you are becoming? So if you are feeling like midlife is a shit show, then you're not alone. And I hope this podcast is helping you to realize that. But I want you to start to understand that it's a phase for integration of everything that you've learned. And as you know, shedding the shoulds, letting things go, and reinvention, coming back to that wild woman who has been maybe quietly tending the inner flame for years and years. And she's ready. She's ready to make an appearance. So invite her to come out and play. So I, as you know, do readings and coaching. And if this kind of work is interesting to you, if you feel so called to it, then reach out to me, send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. And I also have a link in the show notes to apply for one-to-one coaching. And the perimenopause survival guide, if you haven't gotten that yet, it is such a good start for navigating your way through perimenopause. It's short. It is a PDF. It's something that you can continue to return to. And I didn't add a ton of stuff in it because I have need motivation, and I've ordered so many downloadable PDFs and been like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And that's the last thing we need in this phase, especially if you're going through perimenopause. The last freaking thing you need is to be overwhelmed. So the survival guide gives you some basics that will reorient you in a different way than you have maybe tried before. Using human design is a very different approach to midlife than some of the more traditional things, which traditional is maybe stretching it, because I feel like we're just getting into the conversation about midlife. So just remember, this is a phase for actually coming back to who you came here to be. This is it. And that is what is so exciting about this phase. Is like, you've probably lived so much of your life for other people. And this is your time. This is your chance to live your life for you. So what's that going to look like? And being that we're in gate 2 right now, this is the perfect time to contemplate that. So thanks so much for being here. Talk soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Midlife by Design. And as you know, the Perimenopause Survival Guide is out. And if you haven't gotten yours yet, then please grab it. The link is in the show notes. You will not be disappointed. It's going to help you to recalibrate in perimenopause based on your unique human design type. And even if you've been experimenting with human design but haven't really looked at this phase of life and perimenopause in particular through the lens of human design, then this guide is definitely going to help you to do that. And not only do I have tips about your specific energy type, because every survival guide is personalized to that, but there are also some tips on just general wellness and, man, getting your shit together in perimenopause. So check that out in the show notes. If you are looking for a reading or a one-off session, I have some time available this month, so I'll leave the link in the show notes for that. And I also have a one-to-one coaching spot available if you're looking to go deeper into your human design. It's kind of like a reading over a long period of time where we just kind of dissect what is going on in your life and look at your human design and how it can specifically support you through those challenges. Where can you start asking some questions that maybe you hadn't thought of before based on your human design, and how can that help you move the needle instead of just freaking feeling stuck and not knowing what the hell to do, how to get out of the situation that you're in. So I do have space available for one client if you're interested, and I will drop the link to apply for that in the show notes as well. So I think that's it. So I will be sending you right now strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.